Hello and welcome. I hope you are all having a beautiful day. Thank you for joining us. And feel free to introduce yourself in chat while we are getting ready to start right at the top of the hour. Greenville, North Carolina. That's just a little south of me. And Las Vegas
Oh, nice.
and Texas. Nice. And Calgary, thank you for joining again from the now cold white north. And hello from India and Delaware. And we've got people from all over joining us today. That is excellent. All right. And we are right at the top of the hour. So, Tosin, let's go ahead and get this started today.
Yeah, let's
First,
go.
I want to thank you all for joining our Platform Academy. My name is Sharon Barnes, and I am your outbound product manager and today's host. And we have an incredible session lined up that I can't wait for us to dive in. But before we get started, a couple quick logistics. First, these presentations are crafted with you in mind, and our goal is to inspire you with those fresh ideas and practical use cases that elevate your understanding of our platform tools. So feel free to fire away with your questions during these presentations. Just remember to post them in the Q&A session so that our amazing panelists can address them. Plus, don't worry if you miss something. The session is being recorded and will be available on our community on the Platform Academy forum. And we want to ensure your voices are heard. So after the event, there's going to be a quick survey that helps us improve our content for everyone. And also, of course, have to mention Safe Harbor. We might explore some of the exciting future-looking features today, so keep everything compliant with those Safe Harbor best practices. Now to get to the good stuff. I'm thrilled to introduce our fantastic speaker, Tosin, who will take us on a journey through what's new in Zurich for Service Catalog. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Tosin. Take it away.
Thanks, Sharon. Thanks, everyone, for joining us this morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are. Next slide, please. I am the outbound product manager for Service Catalog, and I'll just go into detail on what I'm going to cover in this session. So, first off, we going to just go over like all of the new capabilities in Zurich. So this is going to be like a high level overview. These enhancements for Zurich. So the idea here is just to make your service catalog smarter, like much more efficient, and then also flexible for all kinds of users. So not just admins, but also like more process or business kind of users. So I'll go over first. I'm introducing three features, but then I'll focus on just two of those features. And the first one is going to be the catalog item prefill. So essentially, it's something customers have asked for a couple of times. We've had workarounds, but for the first time, this is straight out the box on the platform. And it's going to help with efficiency and accuracy, like I mentioned. You can now populate catalog items with known information about that user or from a previous page or previous selections that the user made. So this means you are allowing your end user to make fewer selections in the catalog item. You're reducing errors. You're also making a much more smoother experience for your requester. So instead of filling the same items, the same questions over and over with catalog prefill, you can then take some of the attributes you know about that user and pre-populate the form. Going into detail about this, talk about this also further in the demo. And then the other feature is catalog generation, analysis for catalog generation. So we now have a major change to catalog builder, and by extension now assist for catalog generation, catalog builder. So there's support for much more variables, more variables. I'll talk about those, and then also go over a demo that shows this what this looks like in practice. And then finally, to the last feature, which is going to be some of the improvements that we've made to conversational catalog. I would not demo that directly here because of time, but it's just worth noting and just getting a sense of where you are with all of these features today. Next slide. Okay, so now we're going to put up a poll, actually two polls, to one, get a sense of who I am speaking to. So what's your role? Are you an admin, a developer, or a process owner? I see process owner duplicated. So maybe just choose the third one and for process owner. And then also, I wanted to get a sense of what current features of Service Catalog you use. So we have a catalog builder, conversational catalog, analysis for catalog generation, or you don't use any of them at all. Okay, so it looks to me like we have a balanced mix of admins, developers, and process owners, which I really love. So that means I'm speaking to everybody today. And half of the people in this call don't use any of the Service Catalog features, but a good number of people use Catalog Builder, and some people conversational catalog and analysis for catalog generation. Awesome, awesome. Looks like we have a really nice mix right here. Next slide, please. All right, so again, I'll just go over like the highlights of the new capabilities we introduced in the Zurich release for Service Catalog. As I mentioned, these enhancements are all about making your service catalog smarter, more efficient, and more flexible for all kinds of users, which is why I really love this group with admins, process owners, and developers as well. So the first feature I mentioned earlier is a prefill catalog item form. It allows you to populate known information, like I mentioned. So for example, if you look, I actually have a screenshot on the right showing like things like a user's department, their location, or whatever previous selections they made. So that means that user does not have to select those items again when that catalog item is shown to them, because the system already knows the attributes of that user. I can see a question in the Q&A. One says there are a bunch of limitations with conversational catalog as it relates to reference fields. Any plans to improve these options so leaders can open cases about someone else that is not linked to their profile? I cannot answer this live on this session, but please put this on the community or in the follow-up form at the end of the academy. You can put your question there as well, so that we can address that properly. And then what licenses are required? Now assist. Yes. So you do. I would go into detail on like what licenses are required, but generally for catalog builder, the Now Assist for catalog builder, you want to have Create Pro Plus you want to have that entitlement to have access to that. Is conversational catalog item prefill the same as using Now Assist VA slot filling? Not exactly. We have a lot of questions at the beginning. That's interesting, nice. So not exactly. I will show what that looks like in practice. So in VA is a different experience. So this is more a user is browsing catalog item traditionally, like filling out the form, but then they don't have to fill every single aspect of that form because it's already pre-filled. I'll go over that in detail, but please keep your questions coming. I want to see questions. Like you don't have to wait to the end to ask your questions, but we will definitely have a dedicated session at the end for questions. Okay. All right. So the next feature is there's going to be like a major upgrade to Now Assist for catalog generation, which I mentioned earlier. And then finally, we have improvements to conversational catalog. So who knows, maybe the issue you had with conversational catalog may already have been fixed with this new iteration of this new release of conversational catalog. We now have a deeper integration with knowledge graph, so improved slot fill efficiency. The responses are more natural, like chat based, and there's better intuition of what questions are being asked. And then finally, there's a really neat feature in conversational catalog that when a catalog item has too many questions, an admin can set that. So for example, I have a catalog item with 10 questions. In a conversational experience, it can be such a drag going back and forth answering like all 10 questions. So with the new feature, so Now Assist can then gracefully like hand you off and tell you to move, like answer, like fill that catalog item on the platform instead of going through the conversational route. Because as we've seen in practice, depending on the use case and depending on the kind of catalog item, conversation may not necessarily be the best approach if it's like a very long a catalog item with too many questions. I will not go over that in detail on this call, but it's just nice for you to know that these are new features in Service Catalog. So again, first one is pre-fill for catalog items. Next is we have like major changes to catalog builder and by extension now assist for catalog builder. And then finally, like improvements to conversational catalog as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so I have a question up for you this time, and that's if you have tried any of these new Zurich features. If by chance you're already upgraded to Zurich and have tried this out, or you have played around with a practice instance and having exposure to any of these features. Okay, so I see a question. Does this prefill assume you are starting from Now Assist? Anything you've been offered without Now Assist? Yes, so catalog prefill does not require Now Assist. I'll show that. Very simple, very intuitive, and really, really, really super powerful depending on how you apply it. So no, it's not hinged on Now Assist. Is the conversational catalog item prefill the same as using Now Assist VA slot filling? Not exactly. Show that also. No. We have 50K users. Conversational catalog filter is 7K. So leaders are not able to open cases through. I'm not totally clear on that question. If you want, you can maybe send a follow-up question that provides better clarity on what you're asking. Okay. All right. Yeah. So to the results of the poll, 11 or 10% of folks on the call have tried out some of the new features, which I'm very, very excited about and also surprised because yeah, super new. So it would be nice to get your feedback. Maybe put that in comments or put that in comments actually. And okay, so most people don't have any experience with the new features, and that's okay. I would go over them in the demos. Next slide, please. Okay, so now to the first feature, and that's catalog item prefill. So this feature addresses a long-standing pain point for requesters, and I'll just say by extension customers, because the idea is when you have a catalog item, think about like say like the one I have here, like a distribution list management form. There's certain attributes or questions in that catalog item that you expect are already known attributes that you should not have to fill again. So for example, I am part of a particular organization. So I'm in the product function ServiceNow. If I was putting a catalog item and then ask me for my department, I don't think that's an efficient, like you agree with me that that's not efficient because like there's already attributes that we can leverage. They already know a product manager, and by extension, when I'm asked for my department, I should not have to fill that. Of course, if for any reason, maybe I'm submitting a catalog item for somebody else, I may need to change that. So the user has the option to change, or as an admin, you can set that or not change what has been set. But then the idea is at least by default, the catalog item should come pre-populated with attributes that I already have. So for example, like I mentioned again, like I'm a product manager. If you ask me for my department, it should be product management. I should not have to feel that I'm answer that question all over again. So before Zurich, there was no straightforward way to do this. You had to have all these workarounds. But now with the Zurich release, you can now configure this like out of box. And what this means is you can create, let's just say, a whole world of opportunities that you can create out of this feature. And that's like you can have all these better together features with, like I explained earlier, because of from a certain department, I can pre-fill that department, or if I know, does it work in other guides? A good question. In order guides, because order guides essentially like yes, it should. In the past, we should configure a default value for a variable with dot working. Yeah. Okay, that's a good call out. So in the a default value, and that's the challenge. A default value is a default for every single person. So and it makes sense in certain cases. So for example, if I had a catalog item to request a standard laptop, maybe because of us an organization, we know we give out laptops that are 256 gigabytes, and that's what like 80% of users use. You can select like a 512 or 1 terabyte like laptops, but it's an option, but not many people. So we can make a default so that when you open the catalog item, it defaults to 256 gigabytes, and that's great. But then think about a different context where it's not something that is generic to every single person. It's attributes that are personal to me, like my department, for example. You cannot use a default value for like a department because now there's different, like there's a whole variation of people in different departments, but you want to also be able to pre-fill that based on that user's attributes. So that's where this is different from like configuring a default value. Again, to the question about prefill, to if prefill works on other guides and record producers, that's actually a very good question that I've not thought through. It should, but I would confirm that and put in the post-event blog. Thanks for calling that out. Let me see. So we have been doing this with what I assume are workarounds. What is the new method to add this? So I'm going to show that soon. Okay. All right. So it looks like I will just go straight into the demo. So we get a sense of what this looks like. So next slide, please. Sorry, before I touch on the demo, I just want to mention that setting unsupported variable types. So for example, you cannot prefill attachments, and that makes sense because attachments the whole file. We don't know, we don't want to like have an attachment inside a prefill variable. You can prefill custom variable types, like non-input taking variable types like a label, a container, obviously, mask variables, UI pages, or multi-row variable sets. So next slide, I will go over the schematics of the demo. Okay, so going to the demo, I created this to help us visualize what the process is like for using catalog prefill. So the first thing, obvious thing, right, is to identify what catalog item do I want to prefill, allow users to prefill. And it's important because we want to know that catalog item because we also want to know the CSID of that catalog item. I'll show you how to do that. Really straightforward, actually. Next is to identify what the target variables are that we want to prefill. So what are the variables that I want to have a prefill data for that user. And then finally is to now construct a key value pair. In very simple terms, we are going to identify what the variable is and the value we want to prefill, and then we'll append that to the URL of the catalog item. This is very simple and I'll show you in practice, but the idea is because of there's a standard syntax to do this, it means that it just opens up a world of possibilities because that means you can have your admins and developers build out this custom key value pairs based on different user attributes that pre-fills based on information collected from them from different stages. And let me show you what that looks like in practice. Let me share my screen. All right, so I'll start with demo. All right, so I'll start with the demo for catalog prefill. So some people have mentioned that this is not a new feature. Like we used to be able to prefill variables, but the truth is, yes, it was always possible to do this, but then you had to use very complex scripts. But now you can simply prefill a catalog item directly from the URL, just like I explained earlier. So now for the demo, I am logged into my instance. This is a catalog item I have opened in my instance. So first, let's just look around, look at the fields in this catalog item. So I want us to do that so we recognize what the default values are and we actually see when they do change when I pass in the key value pairs into the URL. So we have these variables. Let me do this so I can see the names of the variables. So we can see these variables are requested for, needed by, relocation type. There's current location, new location, relocation reason, and so on. All of these variables I can modify besides the attachments, for example. I talked about some of the limitations. All right, so go straight into like an example. So this is a new URL. So just compare with the previous one. It's the same one, but I've appended sysparam variable values. There's a very simple syntax. So first is the variable and then the value of that variable. And then I can change multiple variables by putting a comma. So for relocation type, I'm going to pass in international. So this changes international instead of domestic. I can also modify, for example, the relocation reason. This is a text field, so I can pass in any text I want here. So this variable is relocation reason. I'll copy that, go right here, relocation reason, and we can just try something. I love using the quick brown fox. The quick brown fox. Let's leave it that way. Let's keep it simple. All right. So I can let's do this a notch further. So there's nothing passed into the current location. So we can look at what the variables are for current location. Let's look for something a little bit not so long to type. So there's 101 Broadway, East Seattle, Washington. It's gonna be a little bit tough to copy this out, but I can type this out. So current location. So just put that as a new variable, and then what do we want to pass into there? So I'm going to pass in one of the addresses here. So it's 101 Broadway East. 101 Broadway East. I think there's a comma as well. Go back. 101 Broadway East, comma, Seattle, Washington, Seattle, Washington. All right. So let me go back and check one last time and see it's exactly the same. So 101 Broadway East, 101 Broadway East, comma, Seattle, comma, Washington. Exactly. All right. So when I hit enter, the catalog item is going to pre-fill with this key value pairs I've put in here. So for the relocation type variable, it's going to have international selected. For relocation reason, there's going to be a text, the quick brown fox in there. And for current location, there's going to be this address. All right. And it works just as expected. It's such a simple but very powerful feature because what this means is now we can pre-populate a catalog item with any variable value we want and don't have the user enter this all over again. There's more to come on. I'll have like a further session where I show more what this looks like in practice, how this can help you be a lot more efficient in practice. We use some more practical examples. But here's the end of the demo in our assist. So this is a joint feature update, so to speak. So first is that the new catalog builder experience now supports a lot more variable types than we used to before. So this is something we've heard like customers like ask or talk about, and that's that we are at a joint where we're not sure like if we should build catalog items with default view or in catalog builder, and that's because catalog builder does not support some of the use cases we're looking for. So previously we used to keep catalog builder to like very simple use cases, and that meant by extension you couldn't use Now Assist to build out some like much more powerful functionality for your catalog items. But now with the Zurich release, we now support more variable types, including reference lookups, including UI policies. And I think the best way to demo that would be to use this. I came up with this Now Assist prompt that essentially is going to make catalog builder to like build out all of like the new different variable types, and then we see what that looks like in practice. All right, I would share my screen again and go back to my instance. Okay, so here we go to catalog builder and we'll build this new catalog item from scratch. All right, for this one, I come up with this interesting prompt and this is it. So essentially it's telling it to create a new catalog item called Zurich variable type test item in service catalog. Purpose is to test all of the new variable types and then put like a description that shows us what's going on under the hood. So I'll generate this prompt in Now Assist. While that is going on, I can see there's some questions in Q&A. We have been doing this with what I assume are workarounds. What is the new method to add this? Yes, there's no additional licensing needed. The idea is this is out of box, so it's you don't need to you don't need to worry about like using a workaround. It's also supported across across the portals, the next UI experience, and even in virtual agents. But I'm not covering that, of course. Let me see, a bit confused. Seems like yeah, it is only in Zurich, or is it? It is a Zurich feature. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, definitely. We'll run it. We'll post a demo. I will make sure we re-record a demo because it does look like we may be short for that. All right.
And as we're working through this, there's some questions about like a use case for using the URL parameters for pre-filling those items rather than a single default value that's dot walked. Off of the top of my mind, Tosin, the first thing that I can think of is very much if I'm some type of a leader or organizer for an event or for a particular type of product, and I want to create a link that's going to be useful for a particular group. And it can have that URL parameter that pre-fills the data, but we can do a different one for a different group without having to resort to code or default values that are specific to everybody in New York. Is that sort of where you would use it?
So the best use case that or like one of like a classic use case that comes to mind is, say, for example, let's say you're filling you already filled a form, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you feel like an other kind of experience because you've already filled certain things like in this catalog item. We
Uh-huh.
already have that information about you. So
Yeah.
it means that we can reuse that and then don't have to make you enter in the same thing again because we already have attributed that response to you. So that's where I think that's where I think it really shines. I'll give an example it's like when we get release shirts. I know what my shirts like, right? I know what my shirt size is. I don't
Yeah.
want to have to fill my shirt size every single time. But then that's not the default value because a default value does not work in that case. Because if I had a default value for shirts, it doesn't address every single person. It just addresses like what's the most common like use,
Right.
most common category. But then if on an individual basis, like if I already have this information, like there's no need for me to put that information back in again because it's already associated with me. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where this actually shines.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And as you're talking through that actually made me think of another place in my history as a developer that I wanted it. And this is really niche case, but you other developers are going to get it. When you're testing a catalog form that has some type of process behind it and you need to create a new one, just rather than having to fill out the form 100 times, creating those parameters, having it fill it out so that you can test it and run it through and see the flow, because that's what you change. That's what you're making happen. Like, yeah, right or wrong, I would totally be using that as a developer.
Yeah. Let me open the preview in a new tab so we can switch back and forth across.
And while you're doing that, go ahead and steal screen share. I think we're still looking at the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay.
That way we can see what you're doing with the catalog generation, because that's where the Now Assists really gets to shine.
I am sharing. Can you stop your share?
There we go.
Okay, that works. All right, so maybe I should just go over that quickly again. So I created this super prompt, so to speak, called it Zurich variable type test item. And the idea is I just wanted to like throw in a bunch of like questions and like create me a catalog item that uses all of these variable types so we can explore like what the new variable types that are supported and also like also get a sense of what they look like in practice. So I ran this prompt. I'm not going to run it again so I don't lose what I already have saved. So it's brought out the item name, short description, but then let's go into the actual questions that have like all of the different variables. So I'm going to this view. Okay, so I love this. So we can see what it look like side by side. So the first one is I want to go to is the so there's this mask inputs. Yeah, so the reference field. So there's this reference field that's new. So let's go into detail of, yeah. So so the question type is choice. So you can, and then you can select like a record reference. And then I want to go into where we pick what table it's referencing. Yes. So now we can configure the source of that reference field. So this is the source table. It's from the user table. It's a simple reference qualifier. You can also add filter conditions to limit the reference list that shows up in your catalog item preview. And then you can also have a default value. Let's see, annotation. But let's look at what it looks like in practice. So this reference list, so this reference list is referencing the user table. It's a simple reference list. It contains like all of the users in my instance. So this was not possible pre-Zurich. It's one of the like very well requested features that we've heard customers ask for with Zurich. Okay, so let's explore another variable. Okay, sorry, let me close this so it does not. Oh, okay, all right. Okay, so let's look at this list. Okay, so another, this is one is a multi-select glide list. So let's look at the actual variable here. Yeah, so same thing. So it's referencing this table, and that's the location table. And then I can also restrict, I can filter out like what records I want to keep out of that list. Basically add filter conditions on that list. So again, it was not supported, but now we have that feature. And what that means is by extension, I can use Now Assist to then create a prompt that builds out a reference list for me. I don't have to do that from scratch. Imagine the time saved doing that. Next, I want to call out, what's the one with the, this is not the motor row. Yeah, I want to call out the duration. Okay, so I want to call out this as well. So we can now we've always had daytime, but then put in the duration and then essentially be able to select like days as like a time scale kind of variable type. So this is just an overview of some of the new variable types that we now have in Zurich. Before I close this out, I want to also talk about client scripts too. So we can now add client scripts also in catalog builder. So for example, you can write your custom scripts for your catalog item. Also, I want to call out, let me do that quickly. Yeah, let's call out, UI policy. Yes. So I can now make, for example, I can set UI policies that create these conditions for certain fields to show depending on the selection I made earlier. So let's try this. So we'll make this question mandatory. We'll make this question visible, no. And then the condition will be if I'm trying to add, let me come out of this view. Okay, I don't see what I'm looking for. But essentially, because of this, we support these new variable types in Zurich. You can then call out this directly in a Now Assist prompt, and then have an Now Assist build out that for you and save you time. Now let's go back to the rest of the presentation. If you have any, let me go back to the Q&A. Let's see. So let's go to the Q&A. We have been doing this with what I assume. Yes. So if you have done this before, it's with workarounds. Now it's supported out of box, I guess.
We've got some good questions about masked input.
Let me scroll to that. I don't see that just yet.
Ah.
We have been using Catalog Builder for simple items only. Users that can just configure the form with no coding needed. We client scripts at the end users. Okay, no. So the idea is you can continue to use Catalog Builder with like very simple items. But then what it means is for your developers and admins, they now have like much more powerful functionality to support those users. So remember, a typical use case for catalog builder was when you had like end users build out simple catalog items, and then along the line you may need a developer to add complex functionality to that catalog item. But now, because those functionalities are now supported on catalog builder, it means that an admin can directly support that user on catalog builder, and they don't have to go back to the default experience to support that user. And it also means that with that, Now Assist also supports the creation of those much more complex those much more complex variable types, and that's going to save your team lots of time. UI, but yeah, not new mask inputs. Yeah, please show mask inputs. Yes, it's new. Okay, let me go back into mask input.
So while you're pulling that up and pulling up the screen share, what is a masked input? Like, just give us a description.
Okay, so essentially, that's where you have a variable type where you don't want the content of that field to be visible like after the user enters it. So for example, like a password field. So let me share that.
That is an awesome out-of-box
Yes.
enhancement.
So this was one of the fields that we created with Now Assist, and we'll go into the variable to actually explore what's there. So for example, typing in a bunch of stuff, but you can't see, and then I can decide to show or hide. So let's go to what that looks like. Mask inputs. Yeah. So as a text question type and the subtype is masked.
Nice.
Yeah.
Then if we go over in our preview to the question named masked input and put something in there, very cool.
Yeah. I'm glad you think it's cool. All right. So you can use encryption. And this is like for the backend, just to make sure whatever is entered in the mask input field is actually encrypted.
Yes,
Yeah.
that seems like a reasonable expectation.
Okay. So let's go back to the Q&A.
Alright.
Yeah. So mask input is huge in our new data policy world. Yeah.
Here's another good one for Catalog Builder. There's an assumption that it uses the Now LLM only. Is it possible to configure that with other models?
Yes, it's one of the improvements in Zurich, and I doubt I should have mentioned that in the intro. So
Okay.
it's one of the new features, not just in Catalog Builder, but across board for most of our other products in the Zurich release, and that's model choice. So you can now like select what model you want to power Now Assist for catalog generation. So you don't necessarily have to use Now LLM. So if you have your LLM, you can bring your own LLM to power Now Assist for catalog generation.
Awesome. And you do that through my product, Now Assist Admin Console, to get that configured.
Okay. If you are hard coding URL parameters versus using the logged in user dot walk to the available fields, still not clear on dynamic use case. That sounds like a workaround.
Here's a follow-up questions for masked inputs. So a lot of times when you're doing field, you can have formatted input types to where you like make it have to be a format like a phone number or a social security number or things like that. Can you still utilize that type of formatted input as well as having it be a masked input?
That is, can you decide to encrypt or not encrypt it? Is that like
It's beyond that. It's can you make the end user, when they're putting in the data, have to follow a certain format of structure for the
oh
data?
I think there's only one way to know, and that's
That's to try it.
that's to try.
Yes,
I know we can set default values, additional details. It doesn't look like, but I can note that down, and that can be,
that sounds like a
yeah,
excellent enhancement possibility
yeah.
there. So
The only challenge is generally like practice with mask variables, with mask input types. Because the user cannot see except like the click show, like you are progressively entering this information, and it's like closed out to you. So
yeah,
if you had to, except we separate like putting maybe like dashes or like spaces between like the numbers, and then that helps guide the user in a specific format. So if you had to, for example, put in social security, you wanted to like put in like spaces, like the first three, next three, and then last four, then maybe you have to separate that, like versus like having them like put in the setting format or not. But it makes sense to have like formatting that restricts you to say, for example, you can only enter numbers, or you have to enter a number and something, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
All right. And we've got a question in here that I feel comfortable answering as well, if I can do one. It is, can a different LLM model be set for different catalog items as they're being built? And this one is going to be, the answer is currently no. The way it's structured is the LLM is set for the skill. So for catalog generation, everything using that Now Assist skill would use whatever LLM is set for that by your data stewards or by your admins, whoever is in charge of that configuration. So at this time, it's defined at the skill level. And we did a very nice walkthrough for that a couple weeks ago. So take a look there. And we have just
I think
1 minute left. Do you have any other priority questions you want to make sure you answer, Tosin?
I think we've gone through most of the questions. Just we definitely so I'm mentioning in the posts webinar like blog notes, I'm going to like show again like the we do the first demo essentially, and then walk you through what that looks like and figure out what's wrong on my end.
Sounds excellent. Well, then let me do the fastest closeout of a Platform Academy I ever have, which is to say, thank you for joining us today. We love having you join. We love the questions that you bring because they give us insight on what you need, what you want, and how we can make things better. Our next session is going to be this Thursday about the top 10 QOL improvements for workspaces. After that, we'll have next Tuesday, what's new in Zurich for Data Management Console, features and best practices. And you've already found, in my opinion, the best academy, but we have several other platform academies. We've got the analytics one, the AI Academy, and our process mining academy. Feel free to take a look at those and the amazing information they have there, as well as we have other amazing resources for you. ServiceNow Impact, training and certification through ServiceNow University, and our expert services. That said, thank you so much for joining us today. Tosin, amazing information. I appreciate you coming to tell us about catalog enhancements for Zurich. And other than that, have a beautiful Thursday.
Thanks, Sharon, and thanks everyone.